Poso maoni wiak, waiwanan kitanan ni mua e yoski piataya posnotaman e yum MITW Podcast. A yospis piataya posnapi notaman e ne hisikimaka e yoso matnamin e hakihi.
So you're listening to the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin podcast. I'm your host, Sheena Wapoose.
And I'm also your host, Gary Dodge.
So, Von Bowles has been our quote-unquote special guest for the last 2 years as the public information officer. But he has an announcement for us today, so I'll let him announce.
Oh, you're just throwing me out there like that.
Exciting news.
Oh, okay. I unfortunately will be leaving employment with the tribe. It's nothing nefarious. I just want to throw that out there for everyone. I was offered a position that requires my family to move, and so we'll be moving to New Mexico and stuff. But I just want to throw it out there that I've really enjoyed my time working with the Menominee people. I've learned a ton culturally and about myself, and I really appreciate the time I've been able to work with Gary and Sheena. They've been fantastic. So I just want to let everyone know changes are on the horizon, but it's okay.
We will definitely miss you.
Yeah. Well, and congratulations on your new position.
Thank you.
So this may be we're not 100% certain right now, but this may be our last COVID update with you. So
Correct.
Yeah. So, Vaughn, seeing a lot of news about mask recommendations changing. I think the CDC had some new recommendations, or we're talking about new recommendations as far as masks go. Will the tribe be changing any of their policies?
So, yeah, the CDC has been talking about changing their mask recommendations, the indoor masking recommendations. Please be specific about that. The tribe met for incident command meeting today, and they're going to hold off on changing the policies for the next 2 weeks. They issued another emergency order. Right now, our case rate of COVID, our new case rate, I should say, is still within the high category. And even under the new CDC recommendations and stuff, they wouldn't allow for mask removal indoors and stuff if you have a high case rate. So right now we're going to hold off for another 2 weeks, see if our cases continue to drop off, which they have since the last time we talked, which is great news. And so after that, we'll look to possibly emergency order number 30 to see whether or not we're going to ditch the masks or not.
Okay. I had, and this is not on our questions, but I had seen something about the CDC changing like the categories or the, I don't know what you would say, like, you know, how it's high, like what it means to be in a high category.
Right. So it's kind of funny. And then it kind of it's why our county specifically, or the reservation borders, and a lot of Western Wisconsin is still considered a high transmission rate. It has to do with like the kind of the flukes or the hiccups seen in statistics where low population and low sample size really conflates the numbers. And so if you have something that's based more on like actual population demographics, it gives you a better indication of, you know, whether there's a high transmission rate. But part of the reason they use like the 100,000 person metrics are so you can, you know, somewhat equally compare across the board whether or not, you know, do we have a higher case rate than, say, Milwaukee, which clearly has more people and may have more cases, you know, person per person. But it gives them a place to look at it. And when they first set out the transmission rates, they were incredibly low. Like we were looking at, like, you know, for a moderate case rate, we were looking, I believe it was like 25 to 50 people per 100,000. And I think a high case rate is anything over 100. Well, you know, if we have 2 people that get it, that puts us in the high category, even though, you know, it's pretty uncommon given our, you know, population density and stuff like that. So they've kind of talked about reevaluating that. I would be in support of that to get a more realistic picture. That's just me.
It makes sense to me too, yeah. you mentioned that we're still in the high category. Are other counties surrounding us as well?
No. So the other counties around us, and you can actually go to like the COVID tracker and stuff on the CDC's website. I love it because it's colored pictures and stuff. They're all in the moderate or low categories now. So the only other places that are in the high category are literally the western side of the state, and they also have small populations just like us. So
Sure.
It's kind of the issue of, do we really have a lot of cases going on? Is it just, statistical errors or biases or whatever you want to call
Sure.
them? In some places in the state, yeah, it could still pretty be high for their populations. But it's been going down. It's been dropping off pretty significantly in Wisconsin. So it's good. It's getting better. It's getting much
Sure.
better.
So, you mentioned that our case rate here locally on the reservation has been declining as well.
Right. Yeah. So last week we only had, I believe it was 5 new cases, and the week before it was 6. Now that sounds high, granted, but earlier in the year we had like 30 new cases per week, or
Yeah.
1 week we had 50 new cases in a week. I think our high was like 58 or something like that. So it's dropped off precipitously. So we're in a much better place now than we were weeks ago.
That's good news.
Yeah.
Definitely encouraging.
So is there any new information on the BA2 variant?
There's not a lot out there about the BA2 variant. What I've found is it makes up about 3.6% of cases right now. Could explode like the original Omicron did, but we haven't seen that, even with, various states removing mask restrictions and indoor restrictions and stuff. So it might be burning itself out at this point.
Is that just because it's not as transmissible as Omicron?
It's more likely because there are more people that are immune to it at this point. A lot of people have had natural cases of it, which provides an immunity that's, markedly better than vaccinated immunity. Some estimates are it's about 6 times more effective than getting vaccinated, even though getting vaccinated is good and effective to a point. A lot more people have had it now, so you're going to
Sure.
transmit a lot less virus if your population's more immune to it.
Sure.
Speaking of that, will we have to get a 4th shot?
4 shots right now are only recommended for people that are immunocompromised. These would be elderly, those that have gone through things like transplants. Sorry, spaced out there for a second. And so, or might be taking any sort of medication or have a chronic condition and stuff that makes them immunocompromised or immunosuppressed. So not everyone's recommended to get a 4th one right now. This will probably become more like a flu shot
Okay.
Sure.
eventually. Yeah.
Will there eventually be a COVID vaccine that covers all the variants?
It's hard to say all the variants because the virus is always continually, evolving and mutating. They could provide vaccines that do cover more of the variants that are out there. And I know they've been in the works. They just haven't released them yet. So we're still kind of running off the original. But there are versions 2 and 3 in the works that probably cover more of the variants that are out there.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Thanks for everything.
Is there any last message, period?
Thanks for everything, everyone. I would just recommend, do your own research into looking into health-related issues. Don't forget to wash your hands. Don't kiss strangers. And thank you again for everything.
Thanks, Vaughn.
You bet.
Waiwanan for listening to the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. You can also listen to the podcast on menominee-nsn.gov under the Community tab. Keep up to date by following us on Facebook at MITW Podcast. If you have any topic suggestions or questions about COVID-19, you can send those to us at podcast@mitw.org.